Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Ordos International Circuit in China for round 8 of the 2011 FIA GT1 World Championship. We've got the qualifying race coming up for you in a few moments' time, the hour-long race which will decide the grid for tomorrow's championship race. My name is Jack Nichols. We've got Hayley Coxon down in the pit lane, and alongside me in the commentary box for FIA GT1's first visit to China is John Watson. John, it's looking pretty hot out there, 36 degrees the track temperature. We've tended to see it get a little bit cooler at this time of day, but it looks like it's staying pretty good today.
Well, the sun's in the sky, it's almost 27 Celsius, and it is a step into the unknown when the lights go out and the 18 cars make their way down pit straight, the longest part of the racetrack, into turn 1. I hope 18 cars come out the other side. I would never guarantee it, but I'm going to try very hard to do so, and then they go through a sequence of very tight first, second gear corners. In fact, the whole circuit up to turn 18 is very tight and puts a premium on the mechanical grip of the car. Absolutely.
We just saw there the 11 car, which is the Exim Team China car. That's being started by Jerome Den Boer, but he will then hand over to half Chinese, half Dutch man Ho Pin Tung. There's Enrique Bernaldi. He is starting 4th on the grid in his Sumo Power GT car. And as I said, he's had a number of 4th positions. You can see a gap behind him there on the grid, which is where the number 7 car of Thomas Engert and Alex Muller should be starting, but Alex Muller will be starting from the pit lane. There is Marc Basseng. He is going to be starting 3rd on the grid, so on the 2nd row for who were the championship leaders going into Paul Ricard, but lost the lead at Paul Ricard to Lucas Luhr and Michael Crum, who started down in 7th. There is our pole man, the 41 machine of Frédéric Macavicchi. It was Maxime Martin who put in the fantastic qualifying lap that saw him take pole position. He's on the front row alongside Peter Dumbreck in the JR Motorsports Nissan, but Maxime Martin, it was a very, very impressive lap to take pole.
Well, we watched the lap. We had a personal best in the first sector, a good time in the middle sector. We didn't think that that potential pole position lap was on, and in fact now they did. Richard Westbrook and Peter Dumbreck, who had been holding pole position for almost the entire qualifying, 3rd qualifying, and all of a sudden in that last sector he pulled out 0.2 of a second, which sounds very little, but it meant a great deal, and it allowed that Ford to take pole position for this afternoon's 1-hour qualifying race.
So for the 5th will be David Brabham. The 6th place car will be missing. Michael Crum starting in 7th position ahead of David Brabham, who will be starting in 8th place. There you can see the rest of the field coming through. The Corvette of Michael Rossi in 11th position. Stefan Mucker and Darren Turner had a difficult qualifying session. They're down in 13th position. Then we've got the first of the Exim Team China cars, Jerome Den Boer in 15th place, and then our 2 new Lamborghinis this weekend starting at the back of the grid. Christopher Brook will be starting the 48 car. They start at the back of the grid, but they had horrific problems all weekend really, and it came to a head in qualifying where they couldn't flat shift, so Jonathan Kennard was lapping a 1.5 seconds slower in qualifying with new tyres than he did in his first lap yesterday. We just saw heading down to the end of the pit lane Alex Muller in the Golf liveried car. There's Richard Westbrook. He's going to be watching how Peter Dumbreck starts from 2nd on the grid. It's going to be a rolling start, and Dumbreck is going to be on the outside for the first corner.
Yes, just keeping an eye on the number 7 Aston Martin in its new Golf livery. Alex Muller was driving the car in the middle section of qualifying, and he said, I was driving harder than I drove on Friday and only had 11 cylinders, and that was the problem. They somewhere lost one of the 12 cylinders in that Aston. They've had to change the engine. They had to take the engine back out again because some of the couplings to bolt the engine up to the water and oil cooling systems didn't marry up, and that's the reason they're not on the grid. They've opted to start from the pit lane, which may be the smart option, bearing in mind 8 or 17 cars plus 1 barreling into turn 1 for the first time. Track is dirty offline. There's a lot of rubber offline as well, and the racing line into turn 1 is bumpy, so braking will be very critical indeed.
We saw that in the Formula Pilota race, which is the single-seater series we've got supporting the FIA GT1 World Championship this weekend. The driver tried to take a wide line into the first corner, but he got all on the dust on the outside and slid off the circuit. So we are on board looking back from the pole position man, Frédéric Macavicchi, who is going to be looking to get a decent getaway when the lights turn to green. It's been a decent season so far for Macavicchi. He's had a qualifying race win already in Abu Dhabi, but the field now forming up into this final corner, which is going to be, as you said, absolutely crucial. this today if you want to get a good run on the driver behind you. So are we going to see any confusion because of that missing golf cart? It looks as though they've got themselves sorted out. So the qualifying round, the qualifying race about to get underway. When the lights turn to green, away we go then. And who has got the best getaway? It looks like Makavicki's got a decent start. No, he hasn't, because look at this. Coming up right up behind him is Mark Basseng in the 38 car. We've got one of the Nissans coming up the inside as well. Basseng with a big, big lockup. They are all very, very careful into the first corner. More lockups towards the back. But we're all through the first part of turn one safely. We're looking back again from the leader, so it's still as you were. No, Enrique Benoldi is made up into third position then in that Suma Power GT Nissan as they come into turn four. Very, very well behaved from all of them. One of the Corvettes trying to get past, I think that might be Lucas Lure that is being overtaken there on the, sorry, Michael Crum starting that car. He loses a place to the first of the X-Bank Team China cars. There we can see the number 12 car trying to force his way up the inside, and he's been knocked wide, so that's a couple of positions lost. And, well, a hectic first few corners, but no dramas.
No, I mean, everybody's more or less got through the first four corners. Now they're into this tricky back section of the circuit, turns 9 and 10. There's almost a step between turn 9. You see the cars almost jumping up in the air. Some lose air at the front, some go. There's the Corvette. The front bodywork of that Corvette has completely gone as Fred Makavicki pulls out a small gap coming into turn 11. That's one of the two potential overtaking spots around the racetrack. The other, of course, will be at the end of the main straight into turn 1.
Absolutely. So I think we were on board. That's Bas Linders behind us, I believe, as the rear tail of the field make their way through. It's the 48 car of Christopher Brook who is at the back of the field as they descend through this sweeping series of corners and back out onto the start-finish straight once more. A considerable amount of bodywork damage, but it doesn't look much more than bodywork damage on that number 11 car of Jerome Dembour. So whether he pits or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it looks like he's not going to pit, and I would imagine that he'll not get to do very many more laps because there'll be a flag. That car is not in a safe condition. You can see bodywork already rubbing on the right front tire, now under brakes. More of the bodywork, so it's not going very far. In fact, it's going backwards.
Absolutely, and it looks like it could well cause some damage to the car, as you say, John. So here, coming through the left-hander at turn 3, we saw Fred Makavicki had already built up a reasonable margin out the front. There is our race leader. He, as they crossed the line that time, he had a 1.2 second lead. We've got yellow flags. That is the bumper, isn't it?
Yes, it's the front bodywork. I mean, the whole front section, headlights, everything is lying just off the track. Waved yellow flag as the cars come through turn 7. Now they're up into this sequence of turn 8, which leads into turn 9. Ford very smooth through it. They've Nissan behind, bumping more, and following the Nissan, the Lamborghini, Nissan, Lamborghini, and then the first of the Corvettes, and the first of the Astons for that matter.
Yeah, the Astons didn't get away very well in that. Of course, the highest running Aston was that number 7 car of Alex Muller, and he started, as we've said, from the pit lane. He is still 18th and last at the moment, but he obviously would have lost time starting from the pit lane, so won't be right up on the back. So we are on board with Mark Basseng then, currently running in 4th place, lost a position to Enrique Benoldi off the start. We come down into the long left-hander at turn 15, and then you'll see there's a little right kink, which is 16, which is really going to stop anyone getting up the inside of you unless they're super late on the brakes. Can Basseng start to reel in Enrique Benoldi in front of him?
The difficulty is the Benoldi and the Nissan have got so much squirt out of that low-speed corner, and that was one of the fears that certainly the Ford of Maxime Martin and Fred Makavicki had, was that they get out-dragged just by pure grunt into turn 1, and that's in part enabled Benoldi to get past Mark Basseng in the Lamborghini, so that being knocked back is principally about good acceleration and good track position.
Fred Makavicki was 1 second quicker than the rest of the field on that second lap of the race. A very, very impressive lap time. Into the pits comes Jerome Dembour then. Obviously, he's been informed to come in. I mean, what are they going to do? Just peel off that bumper at the side? Or because you can't really stick a new one on, can you?
Well, no, they're not to get a new one on. They could take it off and send it back out again. I mean, I think the car would be somewhat aerodynamically imbalanced, and the reality is, other than sending him out and getting some more knowledge and allowing Jerome Dembour to get some experience of the car, and likewise for Hu Pingtung, who here, the local Chinese driver, not going to get a race. Well, that'll be a huge disappointment to the fans who've made their way out to the circuit.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing they can gamble on, if they can get him out quick enough, we may get a safety car or something like that to bunch the field back up.
It's a mess. Yeah. It's a mess, plain and simple.
And it looks as though Dembour might be getting out of the car, which would be a real shame. They're pulling off the, well, trying to pull off the...
Yeah, I mean, you have to say there's not a huge amount of energy or enthusiasm about doing anything about it. And in fact, the message is clear. Your race is over. Get out. We'll have to get this car repaired and get it ready for the championship race on Sunday. It's not going to go any further this afternoon.
No, that is a real shame. So Jerome Dember climbs out of the car.
I mean, he's the tallest driver in the pit lane. It's more like a matter of sort of unwinding himself from the cockpit. There's Hu Ping Tung on the left. He's hugely disappointed that he didn't get a run here in the qualifying race to set him up for the championship race tomorrow. There's Hu Ping talking, wishing and hoping it would have been to Jerome Dember.
He needs the yellow pages to talk to Jerome Dember.
He's a long way away, yes.
So up at the front, we've still got Fred Makiewicz out in the lead, 2.7 seconds now, his advantage up the front. Then we've got Peter Dumbrek in second, Enrique Bernoldi still third, fourth is still Marc Basseng. And then David Brabham is lapping quite quickly in fifth position. He's only half a second away from the man in front of him, as we've still got the waved yellows there now.
Well, until that bit of bodywork is removed, they've got to leave the waved yellow flag out. It's not at a part of the circuit that's going to be of any significant problem. Turn 6, it's a low-speed corner. There's not going to be any overtaking into the corner. I wouldn't expect it. It's going to be further around here on the exit of this tricky and very bumpy turn 10 and the run down. But so far, I've not seen anybody looking seriously. Marc Basseng is coming under pressure from David Brabham. Maybe David Brabham can spring a surprise, as he's just about to try and do. Yeah,
he's looking to the outside of the turn 12 to try and get the better run out of the corner. Now, we've said that it's not really an overtaking opportunity down here unless you're really, really brave into turn 17 and throw one up the inside. They drop down the hill. John Watson shaking his head. There's no way of getting through.
Not at this point. 7 through 17, if you are particularly either crazy or brave or both, but you need to be right on the gearbox or the rear wing of the car ahead. But it's here on acceleration. The Lamborghini should have slightly better traction off turn 17 because of the configuration of the car. Now the bodywork's been removed, and hopefully we'll see the yellow flag being withdrawn at the exit of turn 6.
Excellent work from our Chinese marshals, who no doubt probably don't have much marshalling experience.
No, they don't. And I mean, they've had a fairly steep learning curve. There have been events here. There have been national events. There's been one international single-seater event last year, but of course it's not like European racing, where there's racing all throughout Europe virtually every weekend of the certainly the summer season.
So we're continuing to watch the 21 Nissan of David Brabham right up behind the Lamborghini of Marc Basseng in what is the battle for fourth position. I think Basseng will be a little bit frustrated that he's, after qualifying third, is now in danger of dropping down into fifth position. We've got the other Exim Team China car running pretty strongly. There he is. It's the 12 machine of Michael Rossi at the moment in the battle over seventh position, just ahead of Clivio Piccioni in the first of the Hex's Astons, who had a very disappointing qualifying performance as they bounced their way up the step. And then we've got Michael Crum behind, but David Brabham pretty close now.
Yeah, David Brabham's looking to turn into turn 11 on the inside of the Lamborghini. He's not been able to get quite close enough to do so, but that will be the worry for Marc Basseng. That the acceleration out of turn 10 will favour the Nissan, as we see the Ford out of number 10. It goes back out, having had a pit stop. I wonder was that Antoine Leclerc? I wonder was that the car? But that was the collision between the Corvette and the Ford GT. Antoine Leclerc makes his way back out, in effect now running last. Alex Muller, who did start from the pit lane, up to 16th. Let's look at the start again.
Yeah, so it was a big lockup from Basseng. Where does Bernoldi get through? Because he doesn't get through there. The rest of the field were all pretty well behaved. I think it was kind of turn 4 and 5.
He got up the inside into turn 2.
Yeah.
So that was once he got the car planted up the inside. Now here's where is this where the damage came to the Corvette?
Yeah, I think it must be.
Or elsewhere, we don't know.
Oh no, this is the 12 car, isn't it?
That's the other car,
So that's the 12 car forcing his way up the inside and then dropping back towards Hershey. But this is great on-board action, and it really brings us right into the action. Look at that, very, very close to going up the exhaust pipe of one of the Hex's Aston Martins there and sending one up the inside. That's a British touring car groove, isn't it?
That worked. That was a good, brave, but out of turn 6, so we didn't expect to see much overtaking there. In the meantime, Fred Makiewicz leading in the car, got an advantage of over 3 seconds from second place of Peter Dumbrek and the Westbrook car. And again, the harrowing from the Nissan runs slightly wide there, gets
away a little bit now and is looking fairly comfortable. How quickly can Michael Crum now get onto the back, as we've got